Committee will come to order. This is a meeting of the Domestic Policy Subcommittee of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Congressman Dennis Kucinich, Chairman of the committee. We're joined this morning by Danny Davis, Congressman from Illinois, and by Congressman Cummings of Maryland. The title of today's hearing is Hot Fuel, Big Oil's Double Standard for Measuring Gasoline. This morning we're going to hear from two panels of witnesses. I'll be introducing them shortly. I'd like to say that, first of all, without objection, the chair and the ranking minority member will have time to make opening statements, followed by opening statements of other members, not to exceed 3 minutes. Without objection, members and witnesses may have 5 legislative days to submit written statements or extraneous materials for the record. Now, in connection with that, I have a statement from the Partnership for Uniform Marketing Practices Coalition, the PUMP Coalition, and without objection, this statement will be entered into the record. I also have a letter from Bart Gordon, who is the chairman of the Committee on Science and Technology of the U.S. House. It's a copy of a letter that he sent to the National Academy of Sciences. Without objection, that correspondence will also be put in the record. I want to welcome the witnesses, and we and the committee very much appreciate your presence here. I want to begin by saying that everyone knows that gasoline prices rise during the summer. Everyone also knows that his or her gas mileage suffers during the summer, but it is a little-known industry secret that the amount of gasoline when you put in your tank when you fill up in the summer is less than the amount in the winter in terms of weight and energy content. Scientists call this the thermal expansion of gasoline, and the oil industry has known for 100 years that gasoline expands with temperature. As it warms, gasoline expands by volume, but not by weight or energy content. Therefore, a gallon of gasoline at 90 degrees weighs less and has less energy content than a gallon at 60 degrees. That's part of the reason why gas mileage suffers in the summer. Now, since the 1920s, the oil industry has taken temperature into account for wholesale transactions, and they use a 60-degree Fahrenheit standard when measuring gasoline at wholesale. In other words, when the sale of gasoline is between two members of the oil industry, they adjust for temperature. No matter what the actual temperature of the gasoline, therefore, they make that the same amount of gasoline. They make sure that the same amount of gasoline by weight and energy content is transacted. They standardize wholesale transactions. They remove the variable of temperature from their sales to each other. But the oil industry does not adjust for temperature in retail sales to consumers. When the temperatures of gasoline fall below the industry standard, as they do in many states in the winter, gasoline contracts and the weight of a gallon rises. But when temperatures rise above the industry standard, as they do in all states during the summer, and in many states for most of the year, consumers pay what we call a hot fuel premium when gasoline prices exceed or are sold at above 60 degrees. Existing technology can correct for temperature at the retail level. That technology is known as the Automatic Temperature Compensation, or ATC. One of our witnesses today is the largest manufacturer of automatic temperature compensation devices in the world. The oil industry is not known for lacking business sense. In Canada, the oil industry moved quickly to adopt automated temperature compensation at the retail pump. We'll be hearing testimony today that Canadian gasoline stations are almost universally equipped with temperature compensating technology. But in the U.S., where of course temperatures are often considerably warmer than they are in Canada, then the industry standard of, and they're warmer than the industry standard of 60 degrees, the oil industry has resisted equipping their gas stations with temperature compensating technology. Even after the state of California approved that automatic temperature compensation for use and sale in the state, no oil company purchased it. In fact, they resist even talking about the subject. We invited ExxonMobil and Shell to testify today because they have large commercial presences in both Canada and the United States. And we hope they could explain why they decided to do one thing in Canada and another thing in the United States. Unfortunately, they refuse to appear. I just want to go over this again. You know, these companies do business in both countries. They have one standard in Canada where they want to make sure they're not going to lose money if the temperature drops below 60 degrees, so they have a automatic temperature control compensating so they can sell gasoline at a constant price without losing money. And in the United States, whole different standard. Temperatures are higher, they rise. People end up in this country paying a lot of money for gas they're not getting. So in a way, it's understandable that ExxonMobil and Shell wouldn't show up in front of a committee of the United States Congress to explain. The majority staff of the subcommittee conducted a study of the hot fuel premium American consumers were likely to pay during the coming summer season. Using actual gasoline temperatures by month and by state and forecast prices for the summer, the staff calculated that gasoline retailers will sell over 500 million gallons of gasoline that are in effect created for free by thermal expansion, and consumers will pay over $1.5 billion for those heat expanded gallons, and they will be getting less energy for it. People are paying for gasoline they're not getting. Now, this is big oil's double standard. When they sell gasoline to each other, it's temperature adjusted, so they're not cheating each other. But at retail, the oil companies oppose temperature compensation in this country. And although they oppose temperature compensation for retail sales in the United States, they universally use temperature compensation at retail in Canada. This summer, this double standard will be worth $1.5 billion to the oil industry. Every American consumer is paying for this gasoline they're not getting. And it could be costing people, depending on how much they're filling up their tank, it could be costing each American motorist between $1 and $3 per tank. Now think of how American consumers are going to respond to this when they realize they're already paying incredible prices for gasoline, and on top of that, they're paying for gas they're not getting. Understandably, then, there's much riding on the National Conference on Weights and Measures, which will, this July, decide whether or not to encourage the use of the temperature compensation devices at the retail level. We will hear today from their chairman about their process, pressures, and prospects. The bottom line we hope to answer today is not so much, whether consumers may be overpaying for gasoline. We think there's some broadly accepted opinions on that. But the more basic question of what is the fair method of selling gasoline. There's a saying in America, what's fair is fair. Well, is it fair that the oil industry compensates for temperature in wholesale transactions? Is it fair when the industry sells uncompensated gallons at retail? And what is the fairness in the oil industry treating itself one way and consumers the other, having one standard in Canada and another in the United States, causing American motorists to have to pay a premium for hot fuel? These are the questions we're probing today. And at this point, I want to recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Davis.